The narco-war in Michoacán is hotter than ever, being one of the state's most contested by cartels. It is also one of the most violent by norm, and the CJNG wastes no time. Daily skirmishes of the fear cartel of the Borderos are reported in a continuous and violent back and forth. Stay with us until the end of the video, as today I will tell you about a violent skirmish between the Jalisco New Generation cartel and the army that left wounded and detained in its wake. The apparent ascent of ALS the Gardener as the next leader of the CJNG, and the involvement of foreigners in violent skirmish in the region. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave out your powerful like and comment, because your support is what keeps this investigative project alive. Now, let's get started. The bloody and terrible narco struggle for control of the territory in Michoacán unleashes waves of violence in Uruapan. The main actors are believed to be the CJNG, La Familia Michoacana, and Los Viagras, who are among the most violent and powerful groups in the region. According to information from federal authorities, the two individuals who were hit by bullets after the violent attack perpetrated by the CJNG hitmen had to be transported to a hospital in the region to treat their wounds. Unfortunately, reports suggest that they lost their lives after being taken to the hospital. But this information has not been confirmed by authorities, so it's still unofficial. The violent attack is said to have occurred in the vicinity of the Sierra Pondero-Tiamba area, precisely in a wooded area that is part of the daily patrols conducted by law enforcement, and when they encountered the cartel hitmen, they began firing at them. The army personnel, as expected due to their preparation and training, managed to neutralize the aggression of the hitmen and force them to flee on foot into the wooded area, leaving two of the trucks they were traveling in abandoned. However, in the foot pursuit, they managed to apprehend 3 hitmen and 2 women. In addition to the 5 detainees who claimed to belong to a CJNG cell, authorities also apprehended another individual who was injured. However, their connection to these events is still unclear, while another group managed to escape the gunfire in more trucks. On the other hand, among the confiscated items, authorities also secured long firearm and tactical vests worn by the hitmen embroidered with the initial of the fierce CJNG cartel. On another note, in recent months some delicate information has been emerging, which I recommend taking with a grain of salt. Much has been said about the health status of El Mencho. It's not a secret that the boss continues to deteriorate as time passes, and there has even been talk of a possible list of successors to take the reins of the powerful criminal organization, while Mencho's figure fades into the shadows, so to speak. Among all the possible candidates for this position, alias Flores Silva, known as El Jardinero, has emerged as a prominent figure in the command structure of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, and it is almost a certainty that this man will be the most likely successor to Oseguera Cervantes, according to reports from the Office of Foreign Assets Control. His rise positions him as a potential successor to Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, alias El Mencho, at the helm of one of the country's most influential criminal organizations. Let's break it down. How was this conclusion reached? This is probably due to the increased power of Flores Silva within the criminal organization. Investigations by U.S. authorities indicate that El Jardinero operates mainly in 5 states of Mexico, namely Jalisco, Zacatecas, Nayarit, Guerrero, and Michoacán. In these regions, he mainly oversees activities related to the production of methamphetamine in clandestine drug labs. Additionally, he leads his own armed group known as Special Forces Limones, Limon Special Forces, which is involved in extorting local producers, primarily lemon producers, hence the name. Not very creative to say the least. It is important to know that Michoacán is at the center of an intense territorial dispute between the CJNG and other criminal groups such as La Familia Michoacana and Guerreros Unidos. This rivalry has turned the border with Jalisco into one of the most dangerous areas in the country, with frequent clashes between the rival gangs, mainly to maintain control of the territories. However, for now, what we know is that the CJNG control much of the state of Michoacán, with areas still in dispute. Nevertheless, The dominance of the four-letter cartel in many municipalities is evident. Sadly, the increase in violence in Michoacán is alarming. In the past year, there have been more than 1,400 intentional homicides, of which 1,177 were committed with firearms. This means that on average, between 3 and 4 Mexicans die violently every day in Michoacán. As expected, much of this violence is attributed to drug trafficking and the advance of the CJNG in the region. At this point, it's important to note that the Jalisco New Generation Cartel does not bear sole responsibility for the violence in Michoacán. In addition to the CJNG, another criminal group such as Los Viagras, Los Tacos, and Los Rojos has contributed to the deterioration of security in the area. This has sometimes led the population to try to ensure their own safety, as law enforcement forces prove incapable of covering all confrontational crimes in the region. An example of this was the confrontation last year, where civilians shut down members of La Familia Michoacana, who were attempting to extort protection money. Unable to pay and faced with the refusal of these criminals to listen to reason, the residents engaged in a confrontation that resulted in the demise of their assailants. This is just one of many examples. A more recent incident resulting from this escalation of violence occurred when a taxi driver was murdered this afternoon in the Tejerias neighborhood of Uruapan, adding to the list of victims of crime. The presence of El Jardinero in the CJNG's chain of command raises new questions about the organization's future and its modus operandi from now on. Flores Silva has no qualms about resorting to any criminal method to finance its operations. After all, he has a murder squad funded primarily by extorting lemon producers. Therefore, his figure in the criminal landscape of Mexico could be even more dangerous than that of Oseguera Cervantes. Meanwhile, authorities continue to their fight against drug trafficking in a battle that sometimes seems uphill, trying to keep the population safe, while attempting to put an end to the violence plaguing various regions of the country. Continuing with the impactful news in the land of the sun, beautiful yet dangerous Mexico, we now see how, following the example of the CJNG and the CDS, other cartels are beginning to recruit more and more foreigners. An example of this is how armed Venezuelans clashed with military personnel in Michoacán, resulting in 2 deaths in this confrontation. In Tumbiscatillo, Michoacán, a group of armed civilians allegedly from Venezuela engaged in a confrontation with soldiers, which resulted in 2 men being killed and 3 others detained. The events occurred when Mexican Army personnel were conducting surveillance patrols as usual in the Tierra Caliente region. As they were passing through the municipal set of Tumbiscatillo, the soldiers came under gunfire on Gabriel Garcia Marquez Street. The preceding incident led to an exchange of fire between federal authorities and armed individuals, which ended with the apprehension of 3 assailants, identified as Jorvis G., Wilson E., and Gabriel B., aged 27, 30, and 57 respectively. The 57-year-old attacker was reported injured and had to be transported to a hospital under police guard. Upon the arrest, the men claimed to be Venezuelans, as were the 2 individuals who led the confrontation. However, Michoacán authorities did not disclose the identities of the deceased victims. Following the repealing of the aggression, Michoacán State Attorney Office personnel arrived at the scene. During these actions, 3 firearms, a fragmentation grenade, a live cartridges, and tactical gear were seized. It is worth noting that, as of the time of this narration, no military personnel had been reported injured, although the State Attorney Office did not mention whether the Venezuelans belonged to a specific criminal group. It was unofficially disclosed that they were part of a criminal cell linked to Miguel Ángel Gallegos Godoy, alias El Migueladas, one of the main perpetrators of violence in the region. It's no secret that the Venezuelan diaspora has forced hundreds of thousands of people to migrate to different parts of the globe. And it's a reality that people of all kinds have left the borders, including numerous defectors from Venezuelan police forces, ex-military personnel, and even former members of criminal groups like the Tren de Agua. They are recruited by criminal organizations due to their previous experience and training in handling weapons, as well as their combat skills. However, it is important to handle this with caution, as not all migrants from Venezuela or other nations are criminals. Let us remember the case of the 32 migrants kidnapped and released this year. At least 26 of them were Venezuelans seeking to reach the United States and ended up being victims of kidnapping in Mexico. Closing the parenthesis and continuing with the topic, reports from El Universal indicate that the criminals also had the support of Las Viagras. However, these latest reports has not been confirmed by state authorities. The bodies of the slain Venezuelans were taken to the vicinity of the Forensic Medical Service for their respective forensic autopsy and to ascertain their identities. It is worth noting that, due to the dominance of the CJNG in much of Michoacán, Los Viagras have created other alternative businesses to generate illicit profits. Among them are mini casinos and narco-internet antennas, which is curious, but nevertheless generates between 2 and 4 million pesos monthly, respectively. All of the aforementioned, including the continuous skirmishes between cartels in the region against security forces and the constant harassment of the population, has led to the emergence of community guards or self-defense groups. These groups are comprised of civilians who decide to take up arms against members of organized crime. In fact, on many occasions, these groups have provided important information to law enforcement to detect and dismantle narco laboratories. However, as one would expect, nothing is exempt from corruption in the active country. Therefore, some self-defense groups have had to resort to certain illegal activities, such as the sale of stolen goods to cartels, precisely to finance the equipment they needed to defend themselves against cartels and other criminal groups, which is quite ironic. In other cases, their leaders directly join the ranks of the cartels, as is the case with alias El Abuelo Farias, a former self-defense member linked since 2009 to illegal activities related to the cartels in Michoacán. And here, my dear friends, is where we see the paradigm of drug trafficking, a dangerous business exploited by criminals for decades, which has plagued the nation for decades. Corrupted authorities got the lives and integrity of numerous military and security personnel, and ironically, used as a last resort to obtain resources to defend precisely against those cartels that use it as their main method of income, harming the population. Beloved Mexico, a beautiful country full of contrasts. The reflection of today I leave to you, dear audience. Today, more than ever, we must remain united and resilient. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much for joining us until the end. Let me remind you that if you like our content and want to support us, subscribe, activate the notification bell, and leave your powerful like. Your support is what keeps this investigative project alive. With nothing more to say, I bid you farewell until the next video.